Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Turquoise and Sasquatch with me, Wendy Wilson. Today is Thursday, March 9th, 2023. I hadn't been on for a little bit, so I figure I'll kind of get on here and kind of talk to you. I haven't had a chance to respond, so I'm going to do a video to respond to Stargazer. You had mentioned, you had questions and commented on my Dero encounter, and I listened to the one that you suggested, and I want to talk about that. So this one is because of my, I guess, Dero encounter. I did not know I had one until recent. Well, I would probably say it must have been 2017 when I think it was 2017 when I came across Brenton's channel, and then he had a picture of something that I had seen, and I thought it was a nightmare. So I'm gonna kind of do a recap on that my encounter, and then basically say that I had not listened to the one you suggested, and it's a lot going on. I'm kind of glad mine was kind of like short, and I only had one, and I haven't had it since then. And I think it must have happened for me. We were living in a completely different house, completely different state. I had it, and I don't think I mentioned it in my video, that I actually had that encounter in Maryland. We were living in Maryland at the time, and it must have been like 2011, 2012, maybe even 2013, somewhere around there. I don't remember exactly. Maybe 2013, because my kids were a little bit older. That particular day, I took my kids to the bus stop, and I came back. So it wasn't like at night. It did not happen to me at night. It happened in like broad daylight. I had walked my kids to the bus stop, and it was around 8, I believe. I came back home, and I remember like going up like the steps into like the living room. And I sat down on the couch, and this heaviness, like I felt this heaviness come down on me. And I feel like I was sitting there, and all of a sudden I feel like I did a face plant on the couch. The next thing I know, like I couldn't move, like I had sleep paralysis, and I've had that like throughout my life. Maybe I'll talk about that also, because I've had that ever since I was like a teenager. And when I was a teenager, my late teens, even early 20s, I remember having this sleep paralysis where I couldn't move, but I felt like maybe my eyes could move, because I remember like my head, I was able to like look around, but my body, I couldn't move, I couldn't speak. I always saw a man. Like there was always a man on my left side of the bed. He looked like a white male, probably. It's going to sound kind of crazy, because to me, it reminded me of like somebody from like the 70s. His hair was a little bit longer, almost kind of shaggy. He looked like he was in his probably 30s, maybe upper 30s. I don't think, maybe 40, but nothing past. I think he was probably mid 30s to like 40. And he always had like, the clothing just seemed kind of like bland, like no, almost like a button down kind of khaki shirt. I don't remember the pants, but it kind of looked old, like not what people would wear. But he would look down, like he would look down at me. It was almost like he was always standing on the side of my bed. And I hated when he appeared, because it was one of those things where, like, I couldn't wake up. At the time, I didn't know that I could pray. Like, I didn't know that I had the power of the blood of Jesus to send these things away. I did not know that. So I would endure it, basically. Nothing happened to me. I would just lay there and look at this person, male, looking down at me. And what seemed like forever. When I was finally able to, like, move and like wake up, I would, try to keep myself up so I wouldn't fall back asleep. Well, it happened throughout my life, and I actually had that same, it's almost like the same male come visit me here at this house, and I'm like in my 40s now. This happened last year. I started to feel like the heaviness and like the sleep paralysis. And now I've learned to kind of pray. As soon as I start feeling it, I say, no, 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 no. And I begin to call on Jesus. And I begin to rebuke things now. I know I can rebuke them or whatever it is. So I start to do that. This particular night, I started to feel that way. And then I saw like the figure of a male. And he was as tall as a doorway. Like he was standing at the doorway of my bedroom. And he was as tall as a doorway. Same hair. It looked like the same guy. But he didn't come in. Same like khaki looking shirt. And it actually kind of looked like he had like a uniform on. Like it almost looked like khaki pants. But he stood at my doorway. And I've actually had other things happen to me I'm not ready to talk about right now that, I don't know. Maybe he was sent to watch over. I don't know. But he didn't come in. Like he wasn't on, next to me this time. He was at the doorway, and he stood from the doorway looking in. And again, I rebuked and I began to pray, and then I was fine. Like he was gone. So that happens to me a lot, like that, sleep paralysis. Not as much anymore. It very kind of seldom. I get that now, but I know how to overcome it now. Back then I didn't. So when that hit me, which I'm thinking it must have been like 2013, I was in a different state. I was in Maryland. I was living in Maryland. And I know you mentioned about like the fireworks that I saw. And I saw, I remember for some reason I thought I hit the couch like face down, but somehow I'm laying on my back and I'm looking, and we had like a foyer, and there was this tall wall, and I saw lights, but it almost looked like firework lights. Okay, do you know the like the little things that we give to kids for like the 4th of July? And they have the little, those little things, the little star things that the kids are able to kind of play with. That little kind of firework, that's what it looked like. But it was like little lights. It almost looked like, to me, it looked like fireworks. And I'm mesmerized. Like I'm looking at the wall. I don't even know I don't remember seeing if the creature stepped out of the wall. All I know is it looked like there were fireworks on the wall. And the next thing I know, there's this creature. And it wasn't very tall. I would probably say I'm short. I'm 5 foot even. I'll probably say about my height, like 5 foot. And he's standing almost like in front of me, but I'm on the couch, so he's like right next to me. And he's pink. He's like ugly pink. And he's wearing this Pepto-Bismol robe. Like this Pepto-Bismol color robe. It even looked like it had that poofy, like, all like alongside the robe. And I know, like what Brenton and that other guy, what they described, like having that blue, mine didn't have that. And mine, the one that came to me, it wasn't like heavy, like the picture that he had on there. It almost looked trim, like slim. Not heavy, but not skinny either. And to me, I think it might have been like a young one because it didn't have that thing on its nose. Its nose to me looked like an elephant nose. It came down all the way to his chin. He didn't say anything to me. Like he didn't, like the other guy was like, oh, flew. I didn't see that. All I know is this thing was like standing, like almost like over me. And he grinned, but he gave me like this, to me was an evil grin as he looked down on me. The thing is, now that I think about it, I don't know how I saw him. Because the next thing I know, I remember praying and I was facing the sofa. Like I'm on my back. Not on my back, I'm sorry. I'm on my stomach. And I'm facing like the sofa. So how did I see him? Because I remember facing the sofa and I began to pray. And the minute I began to pray, it almost like I came out of whatever that sleep paralysis I was in. And I was able to move and I looked around and there was nothing there. He was gone. Again, I thought there was a nightmare. And the reason why I thought it was a nightmare is because I didn't believe this thing was real. I figured when I got back home, I sat on the couch and I felt this heaviness. I figured I was so tired that I fell asleep. And the reason why I thought that it was a nightmare is because I've had a lot of things happen to me, and it's like in the daytime. It's like after 6 a.m. Even when it gets light outside, I've had things happen to me. Things that I would say dreams or nightmares. Maybe they're real. I think they might be. So I attributed that to a nightmare. It looked, like I said, it looked completely, it was the same as what they've, in a lot of ways. But mine, I think, was younger. Because it didn't have, and it didn't laugh. Like I heard them talk about this like honky laugh. It didn't make a sound. It just had an evil grin. And that's all that I can recall. That's all that I remember. It was short. It was like a short, and I think it was short because I started to pray. I'm hoping that I wasn't abducted and then put back. I'm hoping that didn't happen. I don't think it did. I know you don't hear encounters like this. So maybe people get taken and then don't come back. Like I think mine was just like quick. It didn't take very long. And it was the only time that I've ever seen. But it left a really deep impression, like in me. I told my husband about it at the time. Like I had this this really bad nightmare. And I told him, at the time I told him it was a nightmare. Because that's what, I believe it was a nightmare. I thought that maybe I was so exhausted. That's when as soon as it's like I fell on the couch, I was so exhausted and I must have fallen asleep. So years passed. We moved into this house. And then I came across like Brenton's, and I can tell you I was in my breakfast room and I have my laptop out there, and because I'm working on things, on my arts and crafts, and I figure I'm going to listen. I'm going to, I know I clicked on his channel and it was right up there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I saw that. And it almost like as soon as I saw the picture, I got sick to my stomach, because I thought to myself, oh my gosh, it wasn't a nightmare. Like, I saw that creature. Or, I saw it. And it was real. Like, I had that encounter also. It wasn't a nightmare. And again, I wish at the time, I didn't even want to talk. I just found out that there was creatures on this property that I didn't quite understand. So it's too much to take in. And I wanted to contact him and talk to him about what was going on here. And then my, encounter also. But at the time, I didn't want anybody to know. Like, I didn't want anybody to know except my family, my immediate family, that they were all these crazy things. I didn't understand. Like, I didn't know where to put that. I didn't think they existed. And I was seeing so much that it was like, I don't know what to do with it, and I don't know where to put it. Because, again, my husband didn't, believe. He was just thinking, it's your imagination. For the longest time, like, I took pictures. I tried to get evidence in the beginning. I gave up on that. I'm just thinking, you know what? Unless I have a body, he's not going to believe me. And how am I going to, who am I? Because at the time I thought, like, researchers are, I'm getting, like, footprints. I'm getting this other stuff. And, like, I'm not even a researcher. Like, how could I, I was thinking, if they don't believe them, who's going to believe me? But anyways, so I wasn't ready to contact him. And then he was gone. So now all I have is regret. And I think maybe also that's why I'm kind of with my channel. Just because there's so much out there, and I know that there's going to be somebody that's going to be in the same spot that I was. And, they're going to feel like nobody's going to believe me. Nobody's going to believe what I'm seeing. So here I am, telling you and showing you what I see. And I might talk about a lot, because I do, like, again, I have seen a lot of things. And actually, you know what? I'll talk, because I know you guys commented and privately commented to me that you like to hear my stories. So I'll kind of give you a little bit more. We passed by, when was this? Was it yesterday? No. I cleaned the house yesterday. Tuesday, we went to the nursery, for plants and stuff. And it was really, really cold. I should have worn something thicker. I didn't, because it was sunny. I thought, I should be okay. But it was cold. And on our way there, we drove by this, what's it called? Oh my gosh, it's on the tip of my tongue and I can't think of it. Where you go, it's not cemetery. It's, Oh my gosh, I can't think of it. What is it called? Oh my gosh, I can't think. My mind just went blank. Let me see. It's the place where, okay, when people pass away, you kind of have like a service for them. In the, it's not a church or anything, but you can have a viewing. You'll know what I'm talking about. It's in the tip of my tongue, but I can't think. Like I went blank. So you have viewings and things like that. Okay, we went by this particular one, and as soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh. And my husband remembered what I mentioned about that place, so he was like, oh. Like he remembered, and he said, oh, that's the one that you saw. And I'm like, yes, I don't even want to look at it. So we were driving by, and we passed by it. And Dark Waters has a video of, it looks like two girls, and one of them's climbing the wall in one of his little shorts. If you guys have seen that little short, and I think it's been around, this video of like this girl that's holding the other one almost by the hair and is climbing the wall. Okay, I've seen something like that at this place. So this happened years ago when my youngest one was like in football. Like it was like one of those little peewee leagues. He was like really like young. We would have to, take him to practice and pick him up. And I think we had already picked him up. So it's like the four of us in the car. And I'm assuming we're heading home. We just came a different way and we went by this place. And my husband said, oh, there must be a funeral because there was a lot of cars in the parking lot. And I saw a man and a woman standing outside this place. And they were talking. So I'm looking at the man and the woman. And behind them, I saw this being, which I can only describe as, it looked like a child to me. Probably 12, 14. He looked like he was albino. Like albino hair. His skin was really fair. And it looked like to me like he was wearing white linen t-shirt kind of in shorts. They were it looked like shorts. And he was climbing the wall. Just like that girl was climbing the wall as she's holding the other one. Almost like the Spider-Man crawl. And I'm looking at the two people. And I'm thinking, they can't see it. It's right behind them climbing the wall. And he's pretty high up, almost to the roof of this building. And he's almost like to the top of the roof. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like they can't see it. But I saw it. And ever since that day, like we went a different route. I didn't want my husband to take that route anymore. And on Tuesday, we went past it. And it reminded me, oh my gosh, that's where I saw that. So that's one of my stories. Today, we had gone over to my son's house. We were with my mom and dad, and we had gone to Walmart, and we were on our way back. And like I'm looking up at the sky, and I said to my mom and dad, oh, look, there's a plane. But because my husband always tells me, okay, if there's a plane and you see, because I see shiny, I'm like, oh my God, there's something shiny. And he's like, oh, it's a plane. The sun is hitting it a certain way to make it shiny. So I was talking to my mom and dad, and I'm like, look, there's a plane and the sun is hitting it just right, I guess. That it looks really, really, and I'm like, it looks really, really shiny. But I'm like, but it looks oval. I go, we're probably gonna, it looked oval. and it looked like almost like silver, but very shiny silver. So I'm trying to point, because my dad's driving. So I'm trying to, to my mom, explain to my mom where I'm looking at it. And I'm like, it's got to be a plane. It's got to be a plane. And it disappears, like right in front of my eyes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's not a plane. It just disappeared. And then we did see other planes. I'm like, okay, so it was not the sun. Like it was not, because other planes were like in the area, and you could clearly make out that's a plane. This one looked like a big oval, and it was really, really shiny, because I thought to myself, that's kind of odd. It's really bright. It doesn't look like, it's really bright. So I think I might have seen a UFO today. It disappeared like right before my eyes. That brings me to another story where this is back in like 2007, I believe. I had moved in with my mom and dad after my first husband and I kind of separated. And I know my brother was driving us. I think we were going back into the city. I can't remember where we were headed. I think we were heading back to like the other house. And I knew I was sitting in the back with my sons, and I think my brother was driving, and I'm thinking my mom was in the passengers, or maybe it was just my brother and he was picking us up. I can't really remember. But we were going through this like town in Maryland, because we were in Maryland. And I'm looking out the window, and I see this cube kind of suspended in the air. And I can only describe it as like liquid silver. It looked like liquid silver to me. It was very smooth. I couldn't make out like any edges. It was just very smooth, but it was a cube. And I saw a business, like this building. It was a business. And I said to myself, I thought at the time I was thinking, is that like a prop? Like how is it hanging? Like, how do they have it hanging? And I know I turned to my brother, and I was going to ask him, how do you think they have it hanging there? Because it looks like it's suspended in air, like midair with nothing. I don't see any wires. Like, how is it being held up? And I'm asking my brother. And then my brother's like, what? And I'm like, do you see it? And when I turned back around, it was gone. Like, there was nothing there, nothing. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like, what did I just see? It looked like a cube. And it looked like silver, almost like the silver of like my microphone. That color silver, except it looked shinier, and it almost looked like liquid silver. And the thing that I saw today, same thing. It looked like silver like this, except brighter. And it was like really almost like whitish. I don't know how to explain it. But that's the only time that I saw it, because I couldn't figure out. I thought it was a prop. And I'm thinking, oh, they're trying to, advertise, but how is it? It didn't make sense to me. How is it being held up like they're just kind of, it was in front of the building. And I'm looking at it, and then it's like gone. In a matter of like seconds, as I'm asking my brother, and I turn back and it's like gone. So that's the weird stuff. What else? I know I haven't been on, so I'm trying to figure out, like, there's so much. Like, there's so much I've come across. Oh, I do have a picture on here that I wanted to share with you. And the reason why I wanted to share with you is because I uploaded it and it came up on my thing. Okay, so at the time I was doing like, like only for me to see my pictures, but I uploaded it. And then it was, but private, only for me. And it came up on in my memories as today of 2016 when I uploaded it. So this happened. It wasn't today because I know I uploaded it later. So it was before today of 2016 when I had my first like print of a creature looking through my glass door. And it's, to me, it looks like the side imprint. And I think I might have shared this already on my previous videos, but I'm going to share it again because it came up that I uploaded it today, like back in 2016. So what, how many years ago? 17, 18, 19, 21. 7 years ago. So I'm going to show it to you. And I'll talk about this one. So this was in March. I believe it must have been like right after I found my first footprints here. I hope you can make that out. I hope you can see it. I circled it just because I showed it to my family. And I'm like, oh my gosh, can you see this? To me, let me move it over a little bit. It looks like a side profile. Or make it a little bit bigger. It looks like a side face. Like I can see a nose. I can see an eye. Nose. I can see it kind of like droopy cheeks. And it almost looks like it's got hair on the cheek. I think I might see the mouth and teeth in that. So that was left on my front door. So this was when I uploaded March 9th. So I'm thinking it must have been like a couple of days before that. So either 8th or March 7th is when I actually captured it. So I had this one. And let me show you the next one. So you might be able to, I did like a black and white. Maybe you can see the black and white better. I'm not sure. So that's the first. And I think I talked about this. So I'm going to show you the next picture and I'll tell you stories of when I believe that happened. I think I've said it before, but for my new subscribers, just to kind of give you a recap of when I caught these. The next picture is of a fingerprint on the side windows on the side of my house. It's actually, I know I've talked about this. So give me 1 second. Let me bring that down. Okay. So right alongside this wall, next floor down, that's where those windows are. And they face, like, at the time it was an empty lot. But I'll go back to the face first. So, again, this happened 2016. I started finding footprints in my cedar trees, on the grass right next to the house. I started finding like big footprints in like the end of February. So it was all in a matter of like days. And I know my son, that's when my son also said, when he saw like, on his way back from school, he was on the bus and on the road that comes into our neighborhood, he saw this black, this is how he described it. It looked like a black orangutan. It was trying to hide behind a bush in one of our neighbors' house, but he's prior to our neighborhood, so his house is on like the outside of our neighborhood. So this all happened around the same time. So this particular day when I caught that face, I think I know when it happened. My husband would have to get up like really early to go to work. So he would leave around 4 in the morning. 4:30. So I would actually be up either anywhere from 3:30 to like 4. I would wake up, get his lunch ready. I would make his lunch, get his coffee ready, his water, because he needed to take a jug of water and everything. So every morning I would do that. This particular morning, I was fixing his breakfast, not his breakfast, his lunch. I was fixing his lunch and everything, and I heard a sound at the door. I heard like a bang. And I know he always, every time I heard a noise here, I would always tell him, and he was like, no, it's the house. It's the house creaking. It's all this wood. And we do have a lot of wood in the house. As you can see, it's just a lot of wood. So he's like, it's the wood expanding and whatever. So I'm like, I kept telling myself, okay, it's got to be something. Like, it's nothing. It's got to be like, the house. But I heard it. I heard like I heard a sound on the front door. I got his lunch ready, and then, he left. And then I was busy, during the day, and it wasn't until like probably afternoon. It must have been like, I don't know, 1 or so, 2 o'clock, when I looked at the door, and I'm like, what is that? Like, the door's like really dirty. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it looks like a face. And I took pictures. And then I realized it doesn't look like a human face. It doesn't look human. So my husband came home. I showed him. And he was like, no, it's got to be one of the kids. The kids did that. My kids were older at the time. So I'm like, my kids are not going to do that. That's not my kids. I asked them, though, anyways. Did you guys, I asked them. And they're like, no. So I was like, look, nothing. And then he was like, well, maybe somebody, like an intruder. Somebody was looking through our window. And I'm like, why would anybody be looking through our window? And that's scary if it's somebody else. Like, and it doesn't look human. He didn't believe me. He just thought, he said the kids, if not the kids, like a neighbor. So I'm like, no, that doesn't look human. I actually decided, I had to clean the door, the glass. So it took me a while to get that off. At the time, again, I didn't know that I should have preserved, evidence, whatever. I didn't know. So I went ahead and sprayed it. It took me a while to get it off, but I was able to get it off with Windex and all that stuff, chemicals. I got it off. And then after that, probably, I think it was a Friday night, my son, my younger one, him and I kind of like the same shows. And they were having some kind of if you guys remember, Mountain Monsters. We thought they were really funny, so we would watch it together. And so we were sitting there watching in the living room. And at the time, I didn't close those blinds because there was no, it was an empty lot next to ours on this side. Nobody lived there. It was all trees and bushes. And I didn't feel like, oh, who's going to be watching us? I mean, at the time, again, we're like in nature. We always left those up. I didn't know any better. Those were left up. Even, we would watch TV and those would be left up. That particular night, we were sitting out there with him. It was a Friday night. And I think we both fell asleep. I remember falling asleep, and I remember waking up around midnight, and I'm like to my son, okay, we got to go to bed. I think my husband was already asleep because he was so exhausted. He went to bed early. Him and I were out there watching TV. And I remember waking up, and I'm like waking my son up, and it's like, it's late, let's go to bed. The next morning, I came out, and when I came out, I found that fingerprint on my glass window. Now, it wasn't the only one. So to me, that looks like a thumb. So it looked like it was a thumb, and then almost like fingertips on the window. And I took pictures of it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like it left a thumb, like a thumbprint. And it wasn't at the angle that it was left. It wasn't to look at the TV. it was straight to look at us sleeping. If it would have been on the other side, I could have, oh my gosh, it's watching TV with us. But it wasn't. It was looking at us. It wasn't looking at the TV. When my son asked, when he told me, what he saw, I'm like, oh my gosh. So I started, explaining to him, I was finding footprints. You're not crazy. You did see what you saw. And I started showing him pictures. I showed him Patty. It didn't look like that. I showed him a bunch of pictures that were out there on the internet about Sasquatch. And he was like, no, there's one that somebody said that, it could be a bear. But it was at a feeder. And he's almost on his back. You can see his back. And my son said, it looked just like that. It looked just like that one. And it was long and skinny. That one looks long and skinny in that picture that was taken. So I was like, oh my gosh. It looked, because he was the first one to actually see anything here. I didn't start seeing them until later on. But he was the first one. I would probably say April or so when I started seeing them. But I started finding footprints and everything. So that's when how come I got that fingerprint around, the windows next to this. And of course, when I realized that, it's oh my gosh, I need to close the house down. We closed the house down. As soon as it starts getting dark, everything gets closed down. We even changed, because before we had sheer stuff. Even the blinds that were here, were here with the house, they were sheer. So I'm like, I don't want those. We got thicker ones. And we have my curtains are thick. So we have to close the house down and everything. But okay, so I should be, I guess I'll let you guys be. I know I hadn't been on here, so I figure I'd get on and give you a few quick stories that I had. And just say thank you. I know I haven't been able to respond just 'cause life. I just kind of been busy. I've been kind of painting and doing stuff for my son. So I want to do decorate his house with my little paintings. And I'm working on some kind of things. You can see them in the background. So I kind of been busy doing that kind of stuff. But I'll try to get on when I can. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing, liking, commenting. I really appreciate it. Just thank you so much. Have a great weekend.